It's astonishing to think that celebrities who once embodied wealth and influence have ended up homeless, even resorting to begging in the streets. They once basked in the glow of fame beneath dazzling spotlights and the adoration of millions. Yet their stardom has vanished, leaving only bitterness and despair behind. What led them to such a downfall? From lavish mansions to the harsh reality of homelessness. These 8 former icons will leave you shocked at the hidden cost of fame. Dive into their stories now. The spotlight doesn't always shine endlessly. Beneath the facade of success and adoration, the lives of certain stars hold surprising twists, from soaring at the height of fame to wandering the streets. Dive into the dark, shocking tales behind some of the brightest names and witness how even a shining star can fade away forever. First, let me introduce you to the homeless tragedy of Margot Kidder, the Iron Lady of Hollywood. Margot Kidder, famous for portraying Lois Lane in the Superman series, was once celebrated as Hollywood's most brilliant feminist icon. This iconic role not only earned her the love of millions, but also granted her fame, prestige, and power that every actress dreams of. Her depiction of Lois Lane as a strong, independent, and fearless woman who stood beside Superman, relying on no one, made her an unforgettable star. But when the spotlight faded, Margot's real life unraveled into a devastating tragedy as a cascade of misfortunes stole her health, career, and eventually left her homeless. Margot's life starkly contrasted with the strength of the characters she played. A severe car accident left her gravely injured, unable to work, and deprived of her primary income source. Once a sought-after actress, she became another forgotten name in Hollywood's harsh and fleeting limelight, where fame vanishes as quickly as it comes. As her savings dwindled, Margot spiraled into poverty. The confident woman who once shone in the spotlight became a shadow of her former self. Financial ruin forced her to confront a bleak reality she had never imagined. With no money for rent and no fame to lean on, Margot had to endure a life she never thought possible. The first nights sleeping on the streets were a harsh awakening. The once glamorous star who strode confidently down red carpets now huddled in makeshift shelters, enduring noisy, cold street corners where each night brought loneliness and humiliation. Margot survived on meager, barely edible meals, far removed from the luxurious lifestyle she once enjoyed. Fans who once admired her portrayal of Lois Lane now saw a haggard woman with disheveled hair and torn clothes, a heartbreaking contrast to the vibrant image of her Hollywood days. For Margot, homelessness wasn't just about enduring cold nights or hunger. It was the crushing realization of betrayal and abandonment by the very industry that had once celebrated her. The loss of physical comforts paled in comparison to the emotional torment. She felt forgotten by a society that no longer recognized her, no longer cared for the woman who once dazzled on screen. To those passing by, she was not Lois Lane, but another faceless figure lost in the sea of homelessness. Eventually, Margot found some solace when a charity organization provided her with temporary shelter, but the scars of her ordeal ran deep. Depression, like a relentless shadow, clung to her, haunting her every step. Each day became a battle to confront the pain of her past and the harsh reality of her present. In 2018, after years of suffering, Margot chose to escape it all, ending her life in a tragic act of despair. Her death left behind a heartbreaking conclusion to the story of a talented actress who once stood proudly beside Superman. Margot Kidder, once the proud and radiant companion of the Man of Steel, succumbed to pain and obscurity. Yet hers is not an isolated story. Many stars who once dominated Hollywood's golden stage ultimately met similar fates. Join me as we delve into the journey of another star who, like Margot, soared to fame only to descend into darkness. To Corey Haim, from shining glory to lonely poverty. Can you imagine it? A Hollywood star who once dazzled the world with his youthful charm and promising career ended his life in poverty and crushing loneliness. Corey Haim, one of the brightest young actors of the 80s teen film era, once ruled the hearts of millions. He was the embodiment of youthful success, but a silent tragedy stripped him of everything, leaving him destitute and far removed from the glamour of Hollywood. From his earliest appearances, Corey captivated audiences and became a teenage sensation with unforgettable roles in classics like Lucas and the Lost Boys. With his innocent eyes, adorable looks, and effortless acting skills, Corey was hailed as Hollywood's golden boy. Fan letters flooded in by the thousands, and crowds of adoring girls gathered outside his home just to catch a glimpse of him. Surrounded by admiration, it seemed nothing could dim his skyrocketing stardom. Yet in Hollywood's dazzling world, fame often comes with a steep price. The pressure to maintain his image and constant scrutiny from the public became an unbearable weight for Corey's young shoulders. Lavish paychecks led him into an extravagant lifestyle, starting with luxury indulgences, but eventually spiraling into addiction. His once thriving career crumbled as scandals piled up, and instead of leading roles, he was left with minor parts, if any at all. Corey fell deeper into self-destructive habits, ignoring desperate pleas from family and friends, plunging headfirst into a life of turmoil. The final years of Corey Haim's life were a devastating series of losses. The Hollywood spotlight that once shone brightly on him had completely dimmed. He was no longer the fresh-faced heartthrob the public had adored. Without roles or lucrative contracts, his wealth evaporated. Corey was forced to live in a small, rundown apartment, struggling to make ends meet, a far cry from the luxurious lifestyle he once enjoyed. Often spotted wandering the streets, his face gaunt, eyes vacant, and clothes tattered, Corey was a haunting shadow of the star he had been. The chasm between his glorious past and desolate present was almost unimaginable. Corey had once possessed everything, fame, fortune, and the adoration of fans, but was now left with nothing. The vibrant Hollywood parties that had been a cornerstone of his life were reduced to fading memories. Instead, his days were consumed by emptiness, battling his own inner demons and wrestling with a profound sense of isolation. Loneliness gnawed at him relentlessly, while depression loomed over him like an unshakable ghost. In 2010, Corey Haim succumbed to pneumonia at the age of 38, marking the tragic end of a brief but turbulent life. The sorrow didn't stop there. His family, unable to afford his funeral, had to turn to fans for donations to give him a modest farewell. Corey Haim, once a radiant star in Hollywood's firmament, was laid to rest in poverty and obscurity. His story serves as a stark and poignant reminder of the cost of fame, how it can elevate a person to unimaginable heights, only to cast them into despair without warning. But if you think Corey Haim's fall was tragic, prepare yourself for what comes next. A pop star from the 70s who once drove the world wild, only to have fame and temptation drag him into an even darker abyss. 3. Leif Garrett. From adored pop star to poverty and loneliness. Can you imagine that a pop star who once enthralled millions would later find himself living in poverty, isolation, and despair? Leif Garrett, a shining name in the 70s pop music scene, with his dazzling smile, flowing hair, and magnetic charisma, was a phenomenon of his era, yet his life spiraled into tragedy as the spotlight dimmed. Leif was the epitome of a generation's dreams, a heartthrob for countless young girls, and a staple in the pages of music magazines of his time. At his zenith, the name Leif Garrett was synonymous with chart-topping hits and a signature cool look that defined his image. But beneath the surface of this dazzling persona was a young man who succumbed easily to temptation, unable to resist the seductive pull of fame and its darker sides. Immersed in the glitz of Hollywood, Leif dove headfirst into the party scene. The allure of drugs crept into his life, tearing him away from his music, his fans, and the wholesome path he had once walked. His career, once unstoppable, began to falter. For Leif, This marked the beginning of an unrelenting decline. Instead of his name gracing headlines for hit songs, it became linked to arrests, drug scandals, and courtroom appearances. Despite once amassing a significant fortune, Leif squandered it all on hedonistic indulgences and addiction. In later years, Leif Garrett's once celebrated image became the faded shadow of a forgotten star. Reduced to crashing on friends' floors, he relied on temporary shelters to get by, unable to afford even basic rent. The teen idol who had once made hearts race was now a weary, broken man, consumed by poverty and loneliness. The world no longer recognized Leif. The dazzling performer on stage was now just another figure lost to the shadows, a victim of Hollywood's relentless glamour. But Leif's tale is not the end. The merciless nature of fame didn't only devour him, but also claim the life of a stunning model who once ruled the red carpet with her breathtaking beauty. Her journey into the street stands as yet another cruel reminder of how fame's allure can turn into a bitter nightmare. Fourth, Lonnie Willison, from glamorous beauty to tragic street life. Lonnie Willison, once synonymous with perfection, allure, and extravagance, now exists only as a distant memory. She was a shining star in the modeling world, gracing prestigious magazine covers and captivating audiences at high-profile events. Not just a sought-after model, Lonnie was also married to Jeremy Jackson, the renowned Baywatch actor whose fame soared to incredible heights. Yet this fairy tale did not have a happy ending. Instead, it unraveled into a heartbreaking story of loss as Lonnie's life spiraled into homelessness, forgotten amidst the chaotic streets of Los Angeles. Lonnie's life was once a vision of glamour and admiration. With her breathtaking looks, she embodied the ideal of beauty and confidence, effortlessly commanding attention on runways and red carpets. Her marriage to Jeremy Jackson was envied by many, but behind the dazzling facade were struggles only she knew. After countless conflicts and immense pressure from a broken relationship, their divorce marked the darkest turning point in Lonnie's life. It was from this moment that a chain of tragedies began to unfold. The end of her marriage not only cost Lonnie her partner, but also plunged her into a severe mental crisis.
Along with sound
Stripped of the support she once relied on and distanced from her modeling career, she faced overwhelming depression. The weight of her pain and losses shattered her mental health, leaving her unable to reclaim her career or her former life. As the limelight faded, everything she once cherished began slipping away. Her wealth disappeared, her luxurious home was lost, and her once celebrated reputation faded into obscurity. With no place to turn, Lonnie found herself facing a reality she had never imagined: homelessness. The woman who once adorned magazine covers now roamed the streets with a weathered face, an exhausted demeanor, and a cart filled with meager belongings. It was a stark contrast to the dazzling model so many had admired. To survive, she scavenged for food in trash bins and slept under bridges or in dimly lit corners of the city. The once radiant beauty now battled hunger and despair, her life confined to the cold streets of Los Angeles. Each day was a relentless struggle for survival. In the eyes of those who once knew her, Lonnie had become unrecognizable. She was no longer the iconic beauty, but a fragile, lost figure haunted by her past. The hopeful days of photo shoots and glamorous events were now distant memories. The pride and vibrancy that had once lit up her face were replaced by a profound and inescapable sadness. Every step she took along the city's harsh streets seemed to lead her further from the life she had once lived. Former friends and family appeared to have drifted away, deepening Lonnie's sense of isolation. Occasionally, a passerby would stop to glance at her with pity, but few realized that this weary woman was once a celebrated star, a beauty they had admired. Lonnie's story is a sobering reminder that nothing in life is permanent. Beauty, fame, and luxury can all vanish in an instant. But Lonnie's tale is just the beginning of a series of heartbreaks. In another part of the city, an action star struggles to survive, bearing the scars of a once glorious life, now marred by the weight of incarceration and despair. 5. Wesley Snipes, the once invincible action star, now in prison and burdened with debt. Who would have thought that Hollywood's unstoppable hero, the embodiment of strength and courage in the Blade series, would one day face a downfall that would shatter his career and life? Wesley Snipes, the action star who ruled the screen throughout the 90s, had it all: talent, fame, and immense wealth. He was an invincible figure, admired by millions. Yet beneath Hollywood's glittering facade, Wesley made a fatal mistake, one whose devastating consequences he never saw coming. At his peak, Wesley Snipes lived the dream life many could only envy. Blockbuster hits like Blade and Passenger 57 catapulted him to the top of the entertainment world. With his commanding presence, magnetic charm, and electrifying performances, Wesley became one of the most beloved action stars, amassing a fortune and building a formidable empire. Every movie and endorsement deal brought him enormous wealth. But behind the scenes, Wesley veered off course, believing that his fame and riches made him untouchable by the law. Confident he could avoid repercussions, he failed to pay taxes for years. This reckless decision set the stage for his downfall as his empire began to crumble when his actions were exposed. Accused of evading millions of dollars in taxes, Wesley faced severe legal consequences. The once revered action hero was now a lawbreaker standing trial. The image of Wesley in court was heartbreaking. No longer the powerful, invincible figure from the screen, but a vulnerable, defeated man. A stark contrast to the roles that audiences had adored. His 3-year prison sentence sent shockwaves through Hollywood and left fans stunned. How could a star with such a towering legacy fall so far? During his incarceration, Wesley's fortune dwindled, his reputation suffered irreparable damage, and his connections within the industry slowly evaporated. By the time he was released, Wesley Snipes had lost everything: his wealth, his reputation, and the aura of invincibility that once defined him. Life after prison proved to be an uphill battle. The big roles that once came effortlessly were now out of reach, and Hollywood seemed to have turned its back on him. The glory days of dominating the screen were nothing more than distant memories. Wesley now lives in relative obscurity, his former fame a painful reminder of what he once had. The films that brought him to the pinnacle of stardom have become symbols of his deepest regrets. Fans, once captivated by his roles, have largely moved on, leaving Wesley to face a lonely and bitter existence. Who will the next fallen star be? Stay tuned as we uncover more untold stories. 6. Erin Moran, from the bright, happy days to the dark days of her last days. When we think of Erin Moran, her innocent and endearing portrayal of Joni Cunningham in the beloved show Happy Days comes to mind. Erin's charm left an indelible mark on audiences, making her a symbol of youthful exuberance in 1970s Hollywood. With her radiant smile and natural talent, she brought warmth and joy to viewers, becoming one of the most cherished faces of her time, a promising young star full of potential. Yet when the stage lights dimmed and the applause faded, Erin's life took a tragic turn no one could have foreseen. When Happy Days ended, so did Hollywood's embrace of Erin. Acting opportunities dwindled, and the prominent roles that once came so easily slipped from her grasp. For a star who had once been at the peak of her fame, being forgotten by Hollywood was a devastating blow. Erin tried to keep going, accepting minor roles, but they were not enough to sustain her or her lifestyle. Without new opportunities or the fame that once supported her, Erin found herself facing a bleak and uncertain future. Her financial stability quickly unraveled. She could no longer afford to keep her modest home, a place that had been her last link to a once glorious career. Eventually, she was forced to give it up, leaving her without a roof over her head. Homeless and adrift, Erin had to move into temporary shelters. The star who had once been adored by millions now roamed the streets, her weary appearance a stark contrast to the vibrant image fans once knew. Her confident strides on screen had become slow, aimless steps, burdened by the weight of her struggles. Erin Moran, once a shining beacon of Hollywood, became unrecognizable in her final years. The radiant actress had withered into a frail, anonymous figure, lost among the faceless crowds. Each day was a battle for survival, forcing her to confront needs she had never imagined struggling with before. On cold, solitary nights, with no one by her side, she wrestled with the haunting memories of a time when she was loved, celebrated, and seemingly invincible.
Will combine the visual and video
Erin,
materials,
who had once brought so much joy to her audience, now lived in a world of pain and isolation, with no one to lift her from her despair. In 2017, Erin passed away, leaving behind a legacy tarnished by poverty, loneliness, and neglect. Her death marked the tragic conclusion of a life that began with glory, but was ultimately consumed by the relentless cruelty of time and fame. Erin's journey, from a beloved child star to her lonely final days, serves as a sobering tale of the cost of Hollywood's allure and the fleeting nature of fame. Though Erin's story is heartbreaking, there are even more harrowing tales hidden behind the glitter of Hollywood. Up next is the story of a child star who defined his generation, only to face brutal financial struggles and legal battles later in life. 7. Gary Coleman, from famous child star to painful real-life tragedy. Gary Coleman, one of the most iconic child stars of the 80s, captured the hearts of millions with his innocent eyes and radiant smile. His role as Arnold Jackson in Different Strokes catapulted him to stardom, making him a household name across America. From TV appearances to public events, Gary's image as the lovable child friend brought laughter and joy to countless fans. Fame found him at an early age, bringing not only widespread adoration, but also immense wealth. As one of the richest child stars of his time, Gary seemed destined for a bright future that nothing could dim. However, that fame and fortune proved fleeting. The harsh realities of Hollywood spared no one, and Gary paid a steep price for his early success. Behind the glitz and glamour, his life was fraught with hardships. From a young age, Gary battled serious health issues, particularly kidney failure, which led to numerous surgeries. Despite the physical and emotional pain, he maintained a brave face for the public, knowing his cheerful image brought joy to millions. As the spotlight began to fade, Gary faced another devastating reality. His family, whom he trusted most, had betrayed him. His parents were accused of embezzling his hard-earned fortune, leaving him powerless over the wealth he had worked so hard to achieve. What followed was a grueling series of lawsuits as Gary fought to reclaim his money and his faith in those closest to him. The legal battles drained his finances and shattered his spirit, forcing him to confront the heartbreaking truth that the people he loved had caused his downfall. As his health deteriorated and his financial woes mounted, Gary was forced to step away from acting and endure a life of struggle and solitude. Once a child star with a promising future, he now faced the harsh reality of making ends meet while dealing with his declining health. Gary's life became not just a cautionary tale of a forgotten Hollywood star, but a deeply personal tragedy of betrayal and loss. When he passed away in 2010, Gary Coleman left behind only a modest sum, marking a sorrowful end to a life that had once sparkled under the bright lights of fame. His story serves as a sobering reminder that fame is no guarantee of happiness, and that sometimes the cost of stardom can be the destruction of a life itself. But if Gary's story left you stunned, stay tuned for the tale of a comedic legend who once brought laughter to millions but ultimately paid the ultimate price for addiction and a life of poverty. Brett Butler, journey from comedy queen to street poverty. Brett Butler, the comedic force who once dominated American television, remains unforgettable for her iconic role in Grace Under Fire. She turned the show into a 90s sensation, captivating millions with her distinctive humor and relatable storytelling. With her charisma and effortless talent, Brett became one of Hollywood's most cherished and sought-after stars. At her height, she was every director's dream, an actress unafraid to be herself, brimming with natural brilliance. Yet, as the spotlight faded, Brett's life spiraled into turmoil, and what awaited her was not continued fame, but a heartbreaking descent into ruin. The relentless pressures of life and work drove Brett into a destructive cycle of alcohol and drug abuse. The grueling hours on set and the stress of maintaining her career pushed her to rely on addictive substances for relief. At first, she viewed them as a temporary escape from her struggles, but addiction quickly became a constant, dragging Brett deeper into its grasp. Little by little, it corroded her life, damaging her career, fracturing her relationships, and dismantling the stability she once enjoyed. As her dependency grew, Brett's professional life began to crumble. She started arriving late to sets, exhibiting erratic behavior and sparking unnecessary conflicts, alienating herself from those around her. Directors, producers, and colleagues lost faith in her, and Brett became increasingly isolated. When Grace Under Fire ended, so did her career. She fell from being a beloved comedy icon to a pariah in Hollywood. With her addiction worsening, Brett was unable to find work, and the financial stability she once enjoyed disintegrated entirely. With no income, Brett faced an unbearable reality. She had nothing left, not a home, not possessions, not even a semblance of her former life. The house that had once echoed with joy and laughter was gone, and Brett began a humiliating chapter of homelessness. The sight of Brett wandering the streets, a woman who had once stood at the pinnacle of fame, relying on the charity of strangers to survive, became a chilling symbol of Hollywood's unforgiving nature. Homeless and destitute,
Chien will
Brett
combine
struggled
the visual
to endure,
and
a
video
far cry from
materials,
the comedy queen who
voiceovers,
once lit up
along with
screens across
sound and
America. Each day on the streets was a relentless nightmare. Wandering through empty lots and alleyways, Brett's life became an endless stretch of isolation, devoid of hope or direction. But just as everything seemed lost, a glimmer of compassion emerged. Former friends rallied to her side, organizing fundraising campaigns to provide Brett with temporary shelter. Their efforts gave her a reprieve from homelessness, but the days of stardom and laughter were gone forever. Brett Butler, once a celebrated comedic star, now lives a life marked by regret and the pain of lost glory. Brett's story is a harrowing reminder of the devastating toll addiction and loss of control can take. A woman blessed with extraordinary talent and wit, she was ultimately consumed by the very fame that once elevated her, dragged down into a cycle of pain and self-destruction. The stories of these stars serve as a poignant reminder that fame and fortune can vanish in an instant, leaving behind emptiness, heartbreak, and profound tragedy. Once at the height of success, they found themselves lost, grappling with challenges they likely never imagined. What do you think it takes for a star to hold on to their spotlight and legacy indefinitely? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. All the information in this video is sourced from trusted outlets and provided for reference purposes only. Don't forget to like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for more captivating content.